Whoa. It's time. Let's go. Yeah. It's going to sound extremely loud, I bet. I have a feeling it's going to. It's going to hurt my ears. Up. Do 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 do. Boom boom. Fish. I will do all the things as soon as I have actually managed to get them right. Because it's raton time. Oh god, this is actually gonna be loud. Oh, wait, no, it's actually fine. We're fine. Surprisingly. Now, where is Zerat? There's Zerat. Over there. And I must enable something else real quick. Hold up. Arr. Wait, no, that's not good. That's the one. Then, I go here, I do this, I do that. Nope, I go here, I do this, I do that. Now, I go back to the live scene, and I complain that I can't see anything. And it mysteriously just fits on the screen. Hell yeah. I don't know why, but it feels like my Twitch is just slower than usual. Hold up, I'll figure that out. This thing stops right now. Okay. We can figure this out easily. And how much delay there is. I will jump once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is there 5 seconds delay? What the fuck? Wait, no, maybe that's normal. Let me check my settings real quick. Hold up. That should be fine. Output should be fine. Yeah. Okay. Everything there looks fine. Replay buffer. I don't know what that is. Recording audio should be fine. Video. That should be fine. Everything there looks fine. Interesting. That is so weird. Interesting. Everything should be working just fine. I don't know. It might be just my... just the Twitch app itself in that case? I do have another way I can fix this, figure this out. Hold on, give me a sec. This might get a bit loud. Okay. On the website now. I will now jump to figure it out. Hold up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that is just normal now. Huh. Okay, so it's decided it is just 4 seconds. It is not my phone being delayed. In fact, something weird's happened. And it's through Twitch's own settings, apparently. And nothing to do with me, actually. Huh. Also, I realized how freaking small I am. Beamsh. Ah! Now I just wait. I wait, and I wait, and I await. In the meantime, I grab this. I grab the pencil. And we do the scriblios. Alright, let's do a little scribble. What kind of scribble do we want to do? I don't know. I fucked up. I moved. What did I do? Hold up. No. I think that erases everything. Shit. Oh, wait, no it doesn't. Haha! I don't know what that is. That's something. What did I do? I am not smart, am I? That's it. What am I doing with my life? I call him Box. Why am I doing this? Why am I losing my mind? I should stop. But I'm having too much fun being a rat. Alright. Let's do... I like these pens because they're like thick, so you can do some funny things with them. But otherwise, they're a bit weird to use. Just a bit weird. Look at Discord stuff real quick. Now let's have a look-see. I'm gonna go into this place. Hold up, give me a sec. I'm doing things in the background. Background stuff, you know? Let's see. Oh, it's still loading everything. Oh my god, this is the problem of having 1,000 people. Nothing there. I'm gonna put the ghoul away. Come on. But yeah, hold up. I never actually checked. Oh no. Wait. Ah. I never checked if the audio is actually coming through. I'm scared. Alright. I'm doing a paranoid check. Give me a sec. I'm gonna do this way. Yep, it works. Yep, audio is coming through. So I've had this issue. I've spoken about this a few times. I don't know when it happened, like why it happened, or when it started happening. I don't think anyone else has spoken about this, but every now and then Streamlabs will do some weird things, and so will no more OBS. OBS actually has this issue where it doesn't allow you to start streaming at all. I don't know why that's a thing, but that's happened as well. It just basically resets itself and basically gets rid of all your scenes, your sounds, your settings, everything, and I don't know why it keeps doing that. I keep seeing reports of it. Like happening from people, and I don't know why it happens. Nobody knows actually. This is something that's begun happening recently. People have been trying to figure it out, but so far, no one has any idea why. It's become a recent problem. And there's been a lot of debate on if it's like actually like just affecting OBS users, Streamlabs OBS users, or if it's affecting everybody. And from what I can tell, it's affecting more and more people by the day. But there's no real telling like how many are genuinely affected by it. I know, I can't draw anything. I know. I know, I can't draw. But I've been trying to just basically make sure that the audio does work genuinely. It just refuses half the time. And I don't know why. I've spoken to a lot of people as well. What is the Intermission Madness for? Also, the Intermission Madness, click it and you will find out. Actually, genuinely, click it. Hello, relative. That's what they're there. You can press them to find out what they do. I encourage you to do it. I dare you, actually. But yeah, I've been speaking with a lot of people and trying to fix these audio things and just figuring out why they happen, and nobody has a real idea. Nobody knows. It's weird. Yes, hello, hello. Hope you're doing great, relative. Hope you're doing great. As you have to stare at my funky art that I drew, and I hate myself for drawing these. I do not know how to draw. Genuinely, I do not. Wow, why did I give him 6 fingers? That's a 6-finger dude. Hands better than most ladders, you're pretty sure? Heck to the nah. Heck to the nah. I have no idea how you're supposed to draw a hand. Hands are weird. Like, if I literally stare at my own hand, I'm just like, huh? How does this go? And it's just like, genuinely the most distraughting thing ever. Because most people, when they draw hands, they're like, like that. There's your hand. Then just add a little few more, like, I don't know, like lines and stuff that go around it. I don't know, somebody draws hands like that. I guess that's like normal. There you go. There's a hand. Why does that look wrong? I don't know. That just looks wrong in my eyes. Something about this looks wrong. Oh, I know what it is. It's because there's a line that basically goes, like, between them all. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that instantly just made it look 1,000 times better. Okay. Yeah. I'm just waiting for the go-through from Zombie once they're ready. And then we join them to hear some stories. Bum, 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 bum. Best. Putting this back. Yeah. That's what it's for. Yeah, that's literally what it's for. Hey, there it is. Yeah. The Intimus Madness is literally just for that. Just to make something funky like that happen. Hold up, I'm gonna quickly take a screen picture of these. There we go. Now we join them. Bink! To the tree! Train. It's for whenever I descend into madness, you can just basically play that. I'm just glad it works. I was about to say rat, but then it was there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit damp in here. I don't remember the train being this flooded.
A bit. It's been raining quite heavily lately. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Midnight Zone. I apologize if I am not as vibrant tonight. I'm a bit under the weather, but I will do my best to read these stories for you regardless. We have some pretty good ones lined up for tonight. I will be reading Greywater, as well as a couple short horror stories about cursed games.
Yippee! That's always a fun one.
Yes, and if time permits, I have a very old and very classic game story, sort of. It's more of a chainmail thing that will involve some interaction on your part, Sleep, so we shall see how time permits us. But
right.
Without further chit-chat, let's get into this first story. This first one is called Greywater. Greywater Gardens lives up to its name, I thought, as I made my way up the damp concrete slabs, bridging across the stagnant pond. Everywhere leading up to the ashen, decrepit house was lined with rotten flowers and congealed waste of cats and dogs and other animals, and possibly even blood. The water itself looked like it had remained the same for almost centuries. This place is dead. As dead as I am. I arrived at the door, or more a collection of dampened splinters, and hesitantly pushed it open, causing the hinges to shriek painfully. No more shrieking, please. Collecting myself momentarily, I pressed on inside. The inside was as drab and oppressive as the outside, and my nostrils filled with a sense of mold and neglect and regret. Or maybe it's just me. Admittedly, I hadn't showered in days. I couldn't face the water. There was what appeared to be some kind of waiting area. 3 or 4 old wicker chairs, and one of those "please be seated" signs you find in posh restaurants. How ironic. So, looking around for the slightest bit of human company, I sat down and I waited. Despite myself, my wallet found its way into my hands, and then the picture of M I kept in there found its way in front of my eyes. I could never throw this away, no matter how many times I told myself to. For the sake of my own sanity, even. But I couldn't. This was all I had left of her fair white skin, pale blue eyes, and ginger hair I'd tease her about, and the freckles on her face and shoulders. She was beautiful. I tried to correct myself to present tense, but I just couldn't. I'd never forget the day the last of that ginger hair fell out. A cough brought me back to reality, and I looked. blinking back tears to see an old man, bald and bearded and stooped over, grinning with a mouth of hideously yellow teeth. His clothes were as gray and wiry as the hairs on his face, like he was Greywater Gardens in human form. Even his right eye was gray. The left was just a black empty socket, with the eyelids hanging over it forlornly.
You have an appointment?
He spoke like he hadn't used his voice in years. Yes, I have a secret. I want to dispose of it,
I know you do.
he said. He let me grasp for words, wondering how the hell he knew, when he said,
You wouldn't be here for any other reason, would you?
He turned and beckoned me to follow him into the back room. I gazed at the picture of him one last time. I love you, Em. Then I slid it back into my wallet and did as I was bid. The room was more of the same, gray and wet and rotting and horrid. I only realized the only remarkable feature was a huge, hefty ledger on an antique wooden table next to a plain steel chalice, and in the middle of the room was a concrete pool, only a few feet across, filled with the same disgusting, stagnant gray water from the ponds outside. The old man opened the ledger.
Do you wish to deposit a secret?
He asked, perhaps as a formality, or maybe he was just playing with me. Yes, I said.
Your name?
I told him.
Excellent. Then let's begin.
He picked up the chalice and moved to the pool. He bent down, agonizingly slow, but eventually he filled up the cup and shuffled over to me.
Drink the water.
He told me, a grin playing on his old, papery lips as he pushed the cup into my hand.
The water will enter you, and your secret will replace it in water. No man can discern its murky depths.
His smile was now so wide I thought his face might crack open.
But be warned, once I have taken custody of your secret, you can never, ever reveal it. No one will ever know. But there will be no confidence or confession, chance of redemption. Are you sure this is the path you wish to take?
I am. I didn't even hesitate. No one can know. For both our sakes. The old man shrugged. Took a step back. I raised the cold steel to my face, and before I could drink, curiosity gripped me. Why do you take other people's secrets?
In the world of the blind,
He laughed, raspy, throaty. He tapped his missing eye.
a man with one eye is king.
And I knew exactly what he meant. For you, I thought as I downed the morbid toast. I dropped the chalice and left without a word, knowing now that she was safe. As I walked out of Greywater Gardens, I looked down at the putrid pond and remembered. It wasn't the water that was gray at all, but her face, as I held her frail body down in the bath. And that was Greywater. Very short but very morbid tale. It was always one of my favorites when I was growing up.
Yeah. It's one of those very slow-burning stories that make you wonder for a bit, and then when it reaches the conclusion, you're just like, well then. That's a good one.
Alright, now on to some stories about things like cursed games. Now, you, chat, might know of things like cursed games, like the Midnight game. It's the classic thing of like, oh, do these certain things and scary things will happen to you, but if you survive, only good fortune will be set for you. I have a collection of them here, and I'm gonna start with the titular Midnight game. The Midnight game is an old pagan ritual used mainly as punishment for those who have broken the laws of the pagan religion in question. While it is mainly used as a scare tactic to not disobey the gods, there is still a very real chance of death to those who play the Midnight game, and there is an even higher chance of permanent mental scarring. It is highly recommended that you do not play the Midnight game. But for those few thrill seekers searching for a rush, or those delving into obscure occult rituals, these are the simple instructions on how to play. Do so at your own risk. Prerequisites. It must be exactly 12 a.m. when you begin performing the ritual, otherwise it will not work. Materials required include a candle, a wooden door, at least one drop of your own blood, a piece of paper, matches or a lighter, and salt. Plenty of salt. If you're playing with multiple people, they will all need their own of the aforementioned materials and will have to perform the steps below separately. Step 1. Write your full name, first, middle, and last, onto a piece of paper and put at least one drop of your blood onto the paper. Allow it to soak into the paper before you move on. Step 2. Turn off all the lights in the house with your front door, which must be wooden, and place the paper with your name on it in front of it. Now, take the candle and light it. Place the candle on top of the paper with your name on it. Step 3. Knock on your door 22 times. The hour must be 12 a.m. upon the final knock. Then open the door, blow out the candle, and close the door. Doing this, you have just allowed the Midnight Man into your house. Step 4. Immediately relight your candle. This is where the game begins. You must now lurk around your completely dark house, the lit candle in hand. Your goal is to avoid the Midnight Man at all costs until exactly 3:33 a.m. Should your candle ever go out, then that means the Midnight Man is nearby. You must relight the candle within 10 seconds. If you are unsuccessful in relighting the candle, you must then immediately surround yourself with a circle of salt. If you are unsuccessful in both those, the Midnight Man will then induce a hallucination of your greatest fear, which will last until 3:33 a.m. If you are successful in creating a circle of salt, you must stay within the circle until 3:33 a.m. You must continue until the aforementioned time without being attacked by the Midnight Man or being trapped within the circle of salt to win the Midnight game. The Midnight Man will then leave at the aforementioned time, and you will be safe to proceed with your morning. Addendum. Indications that you are near the Midnight Man include a sudden drop in temperature around you, seeing a pure black humanoid figure through the darkness, and very soft whispering coming from an indiscernible source. If you experience any of these, it is advised that you leave the area to avoid the Midnight Man. Staying in one spot throughout the entire game will only result in the Midnight Man finding you. It is highly advised that you keep moving throughout the game. Do not turn on any lights during the Midnight game. Do not use a flashlight during the Midnight game. Do not go to sleep during the Midnight game. Do not use another person's blood on your name. Do not use a lighter to substitute for a candle. It will not work. And definitely, under no circumstances should you ever provoke the Midnight Man in any way. That is all. Have fun. Another very classic story. I remember being in middle school, actually, hearing this story, and hearing rumors of kids in my grade trying this and supposedly seeing things or fighting the Midnight Man. Between you and me, chat, I wouldn't go about messing with things like this. It's just not fun.
You never know what's gonna happen, and these things have existed since before our time.
Exactly. This is a very, very old story. I even had to pull this story up on a website called Imgur. The story was from 2011. I was barely a child then, still. And this also reminds me of our next story, One Man Hide and Seek, or otherwise titled, How to Play Hide and Seek Alone.
Yes. Also, welcome, Cell. And yeah, don't mess with the supernatural. It's not good.
Mm-hmm. Introduction. The one-man hide-and-seek game, also known as the one-man tag, is a ritual for contacting the dead. The
Greetings.
spirits, which are wandering restless on the earth, are always looking for bodies to possess. In this ritual, you will summon such a spirit by offering it a doll instead of a human body. Things you will need. 1 stuffed doll. It must have limbs. Dry rice, enough to stuff the doll full. And 1 crimson thread. 1 pair of nail clippers. 1 sharp-edged tool, such as a knife, glass shard, or even scissors. 1 cup of salt water. Natural salt would be best. A bathroom with a bathtub and some form of counter. A hiding place, preferably a room purified by incense and ofuda. There must be a TV in there. Preparation. Take out whatever the doll is stuffed with. Once all of its stuffing is removed, restuff it with rice. Clip off a few pieces of your nails and put them inside the doll. Sew up the opening with the crimson thread. When you finish sewing, tie up the doll with the rest of the thread. Go to the bathroom and fill your tub with water. Return to your hiding place and put the cup of salt water on the ground. Firstly, give a name to your doll. The name can be anything except your own. When the time is 3 a.m., say the name of the doll is the first it to the doll 3 times. Go to the bathroom and put the doll into the water-filled bathtub. Turn off all the lights in your house and go back to the hiding place and switch on the TV. After counting to 10 with your eyes closed, return to the bathroom with the edge tool in your hand. Go to the bathtub and say to the doll, "I have found you," doll name, and stab the doll with the edge tool. Say to the doll, "You are the next it, doll," as you take the doll out of the bathtub and leave it on the counter in the bathroom. As soon as you have put the doll down, run back to your hiding spot as soon as possible and hide. How to finish? Pour half of the cup of salt water into your mouth. Do not drink it, just keep it there. Get out of your hiding spot and start looking for the doll. The doll is not necessarily in the bathroom. Whatever happens, do not spit out the salt water. When you find the doll, pour the rest of the salt water in the cup over it. Then, spit out the water in your mouth onto it as well. Quickly say, "I win," 3 times. This is supposed to end the ritual. After this, make sure you dry the doll, burn, and discard it later. Other things to keep in mind. Do not leave your house until you have done the finishing ritual. You must turn off every single light in your house when told to do so. You must keep quiet while hiding. You do not need to put the salt water in your mouth during the beginning. You only need to do it during the finishing ritual. Remember, if you are living with someone, you might put them in danger as well. Keep the ritual/game under 2 hours, or else the spirits will be too strong to remove. For safety reasons, it might be best to keep all the doors in the house unlocked, including your front door. As well, Have friends close by so that they can come and help you at a moment's notice, if you ever need them, that is. Keep a mobile close at hand would be a good idea too. Notes. The rice represents innards and also has the role of attracting spirits. The crimson thread represents a blood vessel. It seals the spirit up inside the doll. By cutting the thread off, you break the seal and release the spirit you have trapped. If you go out of the hiding place without salt water, you may encounter, quote, something wandering around inside your house, which may harm you in some way. The way to feel the presence of something wandering around is to watch what happens to the TV. The video clip below, obviously I can't show you that right now, shows the changes seen to the TV after 40 minutes into the ritual. Typical things like static and distortion. Nothing really happens, but it gives you some ideas anyway. You can hear the changes in the sound as well. It becomes unsteady, repeats itself like a broken record, and becomes warped towards the end. It's not really advised that you play this game, as spirits obviously can become trapped inside your house or latch themselves to you. So, I advise you play this with caution. Have fun. I remember once hearing a story about someone who, in my school, in fact, played this game, and strange things apparently began happening to her afterwards, and I don't think she was ever really the same again, to be honest. When I had already moved on to high school, her family had moved away, and the last I heard of her was that she had been institutionalized for mental health issues. So, take that as you will. On to the next story.
Haunted dolls are always a bit scary. There's been multiple tales of people having, for example, mannequin dolls, those are porcelain dolls, and throughout like the Renaissance age, I think the porcelain dolls are the scariest ones and the most haunted ones. Just like Cell said, that they had those glass dolls? I think they're a bit separate from porcelain dolls, but regardless. And there's always been superstition between them because they go into the uncanny valley.
Yes, exactly. Things like that, because there's actually I believe it's a Mexican folktale about a mannequin supposedly in a wedding dress shop that was so beautiful but so lifelike that a rumor had begun that it was the shop's daughter, like the shop owner's daughter, that was actually the mannequin, because something or other happened and now her body was posed up in the front window of the shop.
I do remember hearing about that. It gave birth to a lot of other stories as well, and I think there's some pop culture references to it in some places.
I think so. I think it might have been something to do with some Doctor Who nonsense. I'm not sure. Regardless, let's move on to the next story. This one is called The 11 Miles Ritual. Have you ever wanted to have a wish come true and guarantee it? Well, this ritual may be the thing for you, but there is a catch. You will have to survive till the 11th mile. And trust me, this game will be hell to the very end. To make your trip a bit safer for you, it's recommended you have 1. A normal car with no retractable roof, if you do keep it up at all times. And 2. Make sure your car has at least more than one seat. Trust me, the eyes and voices will be further. And that's better than anything, isn't it? And 3. A radio in your car that works. And some warnings before I address the rules are: keep your windows up at all times. Do not look outside, no matter what. Only do this by yourself. This is of the utmost importance and is not a joke. To start, you will begin by looking for the road, and it will appear on your right. So, go right. You can tell it's the road if there is a single lamppost either near or next to the road. If your radio is on, turn it off before driving towards the road. In the first mile, it will get strikingly cold. You have the option to turn on your heater, and you can have it off, but trust me, have it on, because the other miles will get worse. In the second mile, make sure you have the heater on. This mile is just as cold. In the third, ignore any shadows you see in the trees, no matter how human or distracting they are to you. In the fourth, ignore all voices, no matter how human they sound or how convincing they are to you, even if they sound like somebody you know, somebody that you love. The fifth mile, ignore the vanishing of everything, including the trees or even the environment around you, like houses or cars. In the sixth mile, your radio will turn on. Turn it back off and keep driving. Do this quick, or you'll regret it. Seventh mile, ignore all voices, especially if they're coming from your backseat. Also, don't look back. Keep your eyes on the road. In the eighth mile, your headlights may flicker, or the lights in the lamps may flicker. Do not try to fix your headlights. They are fine, just ignore it and keep driving no matter what. By the ninth mile, your car might stall. Close your eyes as hard as you can and keep looking forward. I cannot be any more serious than this. And try to start your car back up. Do not open your eyes, no matter what. I'm warning you, no matter what you hear or how hot or cold it may be. Keep your eyes closed. By the 10th mile, no matter what you do not look in your rear view mirror. The 11th mile is the final mile. If you have reached this far, unlike many people before you, I congratulate you for making it this far, but remember this. Your vehicle may lose power, but continue going no matter what voices you hear or how hot or cold it is. Just please make sure your eyes are closed at all cost. It doesn't matter if you think you might crash or anything. Keep your eyes closed. When the power turns back on in your car, you can open your eyes and you'll see an old-fashioned building and a brick wall that will prevent you from going ahead. Stop the car. After making it out the 11 miles, your wish may come true. It may either be something physically small or something like that. It may also just be in your pockets when you get out of your car, or in the car somewhere if you wish for true love, rose petals will rain from the inside, or something like that. Just repeating this is just in case I missed it out or you didn't see, and I'm warning you here. Make your wish before the game starts. Make sure you have mobile data, since there will be no signal. If you run out of gas or petrol or whatever your car runs on, you're fucked. Just make sure your car is full beforehand. Once you start, you cannot go back. I repeat, you cannot go back. If you start, then you have to see the game through the entire end. Good luck. You're gonna need it. This one reminds me of another story called The Left Right Game. It's a much longer tale with a bit more fanfare, but it's very similar in which once you start playing the game, at all costs you have to finish it, no matter what.
Yeah. There's, for that specific like drive, there is, if I ain't mistaken, I think Chilla's Arts, which you're very familiar with, has actually made a game about that as well. And then there was one that I saw that Tomato played ages ago that had a similar premise around it, where you had to drive a certain amount, a certain distance, and then avoid, paranormal activity, whatever the heck happens, and you just needed to make your destination. However, it was expanded upon
Exactly.
and added that you had to pick up strangers here and there, but you had to make sure they were human and not a spirit.
Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of things like that, different rumors and folklore about picking up hitchhikers and things like that on the side of the road. I
It'd be
remember
fun to see a
one
movie like that.
specifically is I believe this is a Native American story of the Deer Woman, where you shouldn't pick her up because she'll bring bad fortune upon you, things like that, or she'll curse you, something like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
Right.
these, and they're great every time to hear. And I do believe some people are making short movies about it, and honestly, I like it. It's a premise that's very unique.
Mm-hmm. Alright, moving on to our next story. This one is a regular story. It's a bit longer. It is called My Dead Girlfriend Keeps Messaging Me on Facebook. I've got the screenshots, and I don't know what to do. Tonight's kind of a catalyst for this post. I just received another message, and it's worse than any of the others. My girlfriend died on the 7th of August, 2012. She was involved in a 3-car collision driving home from work when someone ran a red light. She passed within minutes on the scene. We had been dating for 5 years at that point. She wasn't big on the idea of marriage. It felt archaic, she said. Gave her a weird vibe, but if she had been, I would have married her within 3 months of our relationship. She was vibrant, the kind of girl who would choose dare every time. She was happiest when camping, a total technophile, too. She always smelled like cinnamon. That being said, she wasn't perfect. She always said something along the lines of, if I cark it first, I don't just say good things about me. I've never liked that. If you don't pay me out, you're doing me a disservice. I've got so many flaws, and it's just part of me. So, this is from the music she said she liked and the music she actually liked were very different. Her idea of affection was a side hug. Wasn't exactly, romantic. I know that's tangential, but I don't feel right discussing her without you having an idea of what she was like. Onto the meat. Em had been dead for approaching 13 months when she first messaged me. September 4th, 2013. This is when it began. I left Emily's Facebook account activated so I could send her the occasional message, post on her wall, or go through her albums. It felt too final and too un-Emily to memorialize it. I shared, quote-unquote, access with her mother, Susan, meaning her mother has her login and password and has sent a total of approximately 3 minutes on the website, or on a computer total. After a little confusion, I assumed it was her. November 16th, 2013. I had received confirmation from Susan that she hadn't logged into Em's Facebook since the week of her death. Em knew a lot of people, so I instantly assumed this was one of her more tech-savvy, quote-unquote, friends fucking with me in the worst way possible. I noticed pretty much immediately that whoever was chatting with me was recycling old messages from Em and my shared chat history. The wheels on the bus comment was from when we were discussing songs to play that on a road trip that never eventuated. Hello happened about 1 million times. Around February 14th, 2014, Emily started tagging herself in my photos. I would get notifications for them, but the tag would generally always be removed by the time I got to it. The first time I actually caught one, it felt like someone had punched me in the gut. She would tag herself in spaces where it was plausible for her to be, or where she would usually hang out. I've got screenshots of 2 from April and June. These are the only ones I've caught, so they're a little out of timeline. They're a little out of the timeline I'm trying to write out. Around this period of time, I stopped being able to sleep. I was too angry to sleep. She would tag herself in random photos every couple of weeks. The friends who noticed and said something thought it was a fucked up bug. I found out recently that there have been friends who have noticed and just didn't say anything. Some of them had removed me from their Facebook friends list. Whatever. At this point, some of you may be wondering why I didn't just kill my Facebook profile. I wish I had. I did, for a little while. On days when I can't get out there, though, it's nice having my friends available to chat. It's nice visiting M's page when the little green circle isn't next to her name. I was already socially reclusive when Em was alive. Her death turned me into something pretty close to a hermit, and Facebook and MMOs are my really only social outlets. On March 25th, I received a quote answer. It wasn't until I was going over these logs a few months later that I noticed she was recycling my own words as well. My response seemed kind of lackluster here. I was intentionally providing him or her, with emotional bait. This is actually devastating. To keep them interested in their game. I was working off the assumption that the kind of person to do this would be the kind of person that would thrive on the distress of others. As fucked up as it sounds. I was posting in tech forums, looking for ways to track this person, contacting Facebook. I needed to keep them around so I could gather evidence. Before anyone asks, yes, I changed the password and all security info countless times. 29th of April. I hadn't discovered any leads. Facebook had told me the locations her page had been accessed from, but since her death, they're all places I can account for. My home, my work, her mom's house, etc. My response here wasn't bait. Yo, ask Nathan was an in-joke, too lame, worth explaining. But seeing her say it again was absolutely fucking crippled me. My reaction in real life was much prettier. I'm not expecting my bond back on my apartment. Her last few messages had started to scare me, but I wouldn't admit it at this point. 8th of May. I don't really have the words for this. Freezing is the first original word it made. This has given me nightmares that only started to kick in recently. I keep dreaming that she's in an ice-cold car, frozen blue and gray, and I'm standing outside in the warmth, screaming at her to just open the door. She doesn't even realize I'm there. Sometimes her legs are outside with me. 24th of May. I wasn't actually drunk. She wasn't an affectionate girl, and I was always embarrassed her to exchange I love yous, cuddle, or talk about how much we meant to each other. She was more comfortable with it when I was boozed up. I got fake drunk a lot. Her reply is what prompted me to memorize her page, thinking it might help curb this behavior. It might seem innocuous compared to her previous messages, but it pasted from an old conversation where I was trying to convince her to let me drive her home from a friend's house. In the collision, the dashboard had crushed her. She was severed in a diagonal line from her right hip to midway down her left thigh. One of her legs was found tucked under the back seat. Going back in time a bit, 7th of August, 2012. These logs are from the day she died. She was usually home from work by 4:30. This, along with a couple of voice messages, is the last time I talked to her, under the assumption that she was still alive. You'll see why I'm showing these to you soon. Yesterday, 1st of July, 2014, I memorialized her page a couple of days after I received the message about walking. Until today, she'd been quiet. She wasn't even tagging herself in my photos anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. Do I kill her memorial page? But if it is her... God, I want to puke. I feel so sick. I don't know what's happening. I just want it to stop. Fuck, I just heard another Facebook alert. I'm too afraid to swap windows and check it. And that was, my dead girlfriend keeps messaging me on Facebook. It's paired with a bunch of actual photos of the logs, but due to how we have our stream set up, it would have been a bit taxing to show all of them, because there were quite a lot. Not to mention, some of the addresses were faulty, since that story was from quite a while ago.
Yeah, considering it's from the
still...
heyday of Facebook.
It's still quite a disturbing story, in my opinion, and it plays into that longing that you feel that I can actually relate to a bit.
I think a lot of us can relate to it.
You look back at someone's page, even if something so terrible as them passing hasn't happened, more so you got into a fight or something has come between the two of you, and you see their chat in your DMs or something like that, or you see their account pop up because they're active online, and you click on their DMs and you read some of their messages, and it feels like you're looking at a ghost, almost. Like you're seeing the remnants of what has passed already. It's almost sobering, but it's quite haunting still.
It is, and for a lot of people it's very devastating because it bears a lot of weight. It's hilarious how much a history between somebody can bear when you go through all the old DMs and you'll read your own chats and their chats, or see the pictures you've taken, and then you remember all the memories and stuff. I think basically everybody can relate to that on some level.
It's good, though, sometimes. It's like, I've put it very specifically to a very dear friend of mine quite recently. It's like peroxide on a cut. It hurts like a bitch and you fucking hate it and you just wish that you never did it, but it's necessary. It's a necessary sort of hurt. It's like stretching when you're stiff. It hurts like a bitch for just a moment, but when you're done, it's all better. It helps you move forward.
Yeah.
Alright. This next one is called "The only other astronaut on this mission died 6 weeks ago, but the computer insists their life signs are still stable. When Ben died, he made very little noise. It was the computers that alerted me. Shrill alarms and flashing lights. I hadn't even gotten out from my sleeping bag before my smartwatch had lit up with half a dozen messages about system failures. Astronaut 1. Heart rate monitor failure. Astronaut 1. Skin conductance monitor failure. Astronaut 1. VO2 monitor failure. The situation didn't sink in until I was shaking and unresponsive Ben. Wide eyes rolling back into his skull. Blood pooling in his ears like red jelly. Viscosity, mass, no gravity. Ugh, made me nauseous just to look at it. HQ would later say Ben died from an aneurysm. 1 in a million. Freak death that just happened to occur in low Earth orbit. So what now? I asked after all the panic had died down, and the reality of my situation finally set in. HQ sent me a rarely used or discussed document that outlined what I'd have to do. Bodies pose a unique threat in microgravity, it explained. All that order becomes disordered. What is solid turns to liquid. What is liquid turns to gas. First thing I needed to do was put Ben's body somewhere that had no oxygen and was freezing cold. Somewhere he would pose no danger to either himself, though it was very unlikely, or me. Isolated, but easily retrievable. The conclusion was obvious. I knew what they'd suggest before I'd even reached that part of the booklet. It happened so fast that Ben was so warm when I put him in a special bag designed to endure the vacuum of space. I kept expecting him to protest as I pulled at stiffening limbs and manipulated swelling joints. Every step of the process, every zip, every bit of Velcro, I had to remind myself that he wasn't going to complain. He wasn't going to say anything at all. It felt oddly intimate, but it wasn't. Intimacy requires 2 people. By that point, Ben was just meat. A slab of flesh just waiting to be processed. The spacewalk itself was something else, to put it lightly. The bag that surrounded Ben's body inflated in the vacuum, and I instinctively felt the urge to undo what I had done. There was a body in there. Bodies aren't meant to have so little between them and outer space. When I touched the bag, I could still feel him beneath the paper-thin material. The crease of an elbow, the bump of his nose. By the time I reached my destination, his body already felt brittle. Attaching him to the station was easy enough on a technical level. Leaving him there went against my every instinct I had. After that, there was no pretending he was coming back. What was done is done. A day later, and I began to pack his things away. There was a odd catharsis in it that I found almost calming. I cataloged his belongings with a bit of forced thin detachment. Most of his things were dry and uninteresting. Photos of him with a dog, copy of a Michael Shea book, certificate of excellence from NASA that he received when he was 10. He'd discovered a comet, he told me during our first meeting. Backyard with a telescope. NASA even let him name it and everything. That was how he knew he wanted to be an astronaut. Described it as a calling. Ben was just like that. Real life Boy Scout. In life, he had no edges. You'd think, given our history, we'd be close. 2 men selected based on extensive psychological profiling. Together, we had simulated multiple missions to Mars. 1 on the ground, 1 in space. All of them highly secretive. An official mission to Mars was meant to be next, at which point the whole project would be made public. But the key to having 2 people work together, alone, for nearly an entire year isn't to find 2 guys who are best friends forever. It's finding people who won't grate on one another, neither hate nor love. Two men who enjoy their own company, but don't mind one another. Ben and I had become acquainted over all that time together, but it wasn't like we were brothers in arms or whatever. We worked so well precisely because there was no meat to the friendship. No stakes. Nothing to argue over, nothing to drive us apart. To me, Ben was a nice guy, but that was all. I figured he was plain and simple all the way down. No dark secrets, no real problems to speak of, no skeletons in his closet. The journal I found and his personal effects changed all of that. It was taped to the inside of a panel of a computer at his workstation. He must have hidden it close to his things, somewhere out of sight, but easily retrievable. Frayed leaves and yellow pages, like some ancient artifact. Last thing I expected was to find it in a space station. I almost mistook its leather cover for some sort of personal Bible. The sort of well-worn tome held up by a preacher making exclamations about the devil, but its insides were handwritten and hardly in keeping with the Bible's. Scribbles, shapes, phrases repeated and dissected over and over again. Some of it was even in binary coding. It seemed like the ravings of a child or even a lunatic. I thought it was maybe a mindfulness exercise, something akin to empty-headed doodling to help him get his head straight during these stressful moments. But that didn't explain why he had hidden it. Why the numbers and pages seemed strangely organized. I don't know how to describe it exactly, except to say there was the vague impression that it was meant something to the person who made it. Every last gram on a shuttle accounted for. What you bring up with you, it can't just be some random crap you want at the last minute. Ben would have had to clear the journal. I'm assuming he kept the contents secret. One look at what he'd been writing and NASA would have had him in for a psych eval before he even got to the end of the day. But the book's size and weight would have to be logged and counted for. I'd have gotten onto the station by accident, so I knew immediately that Ben had wanted it for something. I studied it for over an hour, trying to figure it out what exactly that was. Flicking from one page to the next, glaring at rows upon rows upon rows of numbers, strange fractals, something that looked like a cross between an eye and a textbook drawing of an atom. Given the way his writing and art skills developed throughout the book, I began to suspect he had been adding to it since his childhood, which was just another layer growing to the mystery. I thought I was never going to get any insight from the book until about 3/4 of the way through. I came across yet another page filled with rows of numbers. Only this time, one of the strings was underlined, and a single word had been scratched ragged and angry next to it. The only bit of English, or any human language, in all those pages. The only thing written in a way that could make sense to a living human. The word itself made me stop dead in my tracks, made my blood run cold. 170318042636. Aneurysm. The suspicion that came over me felt like a kind of madness. I told myself I had to be nuts when I checked the data from Ben's biomonitor. That I had to be crazy to even entertain the notion, but the information recorded by several different machines confirmed it. Ben's exact time of death was the 17th of March, 2018, 0426 hours and 36 seconds. I don't think I moved for a good 15, maybe even 20 minutes after that. I just stared at the data as my mind worked its way around a giant, impossible realization. Ben knew he was going to die. Of course, I tried to rationalize this. Anyone would. I came up with half a dozen reasons he had written what he'd written. None of them were comforting, although at least fit in with more rational worldviews. Take, for example, the idea that Ben had killed himself at that exact moment in time to meet some sort of prophecy he'd scrawled days or even hours beforehand. Is that a good thing? What did it mean for me? Ignoring the logistical issues, like poison can be timed to the second. Let's just say that is what he did. That left the hair-raising question of why? And there was no comfortable answer that I could see. Of course, I went through the book with a fine-tooth comb looking for any more clues. I wish I hadn't. I eventually found another word. This one closer to the very end of the journal. Another date and timestamp, one that lay 6 weeks in the future, and another word scratched painfully into the paper by a clumsy fist. Immolation. Permission denied. I bit my lip and took a breath. What about the station's integrity? I asked. No signs of any issue from external cameras, they replied. I can hear something banging on the hull, I told them. Nothing is visible on the cameras. That's why I need to go take a look, I wrote. It's hard to argue with a computer. You can't shoot it a death glare or physically threaten it. HQ could have easily arranged video calls, but they really wanted the distance. It just made it easier to say no. Solo spacewalk is incredibly dangerous, they wrote back. Microphones in Station Hall are reporting nothing of concern. Usual impact from debris. Nothing that corroborates reports of external tapping. Permission for spacewalk is denied. I made no further response, but instead closed the screen and wondered if they were being entirely truthful. The tapping sound, coming and going over the last few days, was unmistakable. Even over all those whirring machines and motors, space stations are loud, especially in the vacuum of space. They'd even give us earplugs to handle it. But whatever was out there was somehow louder. Perhaps, given the circumstances, I was just sensitive to the thought of something, anything, anyone out there. There was no denying it annoyed me. Just one of those sounds I found impossible to block out, like water dripping in a bathtub at 3 a.m. Tap, 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 tap. Made no sense of order. Not on the surface level, but something, maybe, underneath. Some sense or reason, some kind of regularity that the brain detects and can't let go of. How could the microphones possibly miss it? My ability to sleep was getting progressively difficult. At times, I thought the station was under some kind of hidden stress. Materials freezing and warming in irregular ways. No atmosphere, no conduction of heat. Things get hot in the sun's rays. Objects warm and cool to both extremes. This is routine stuff for anything up in space, of course. But it didn't stop me from thinking about all the ways that the station was just a pile of metal that could just come undone. Could break, tear, bend and stretch. like watching the wing of your plane wobble during turbulence. It's an uncomfortable reminder that you're just a monkey in a fancy toy. And what if something had come loose? Something. Oh. At first, I stuck to this notion strictly, asking myself, what if some antenna or strap or bit of metal had gotten loose and was just banging on the outside of the hull? That would be bad, but of course, that wasn't really what I was thinking. It's what I wrote to HQ about over and over and over and over again. But what was really on my mind was the thought that maybe, somehow, some way, he had gotten loose. And of course, that's not so silly, right? The specially designed bag he was in, the one that would vent gases produced by decomposition while maintaining his body's integrity, it was brand spanking new, literally out of a packaging when I first put it out. Now, know how many times it had been tested? Never. Literally never, ever. Ben was the first, so of course it might come loose. Just because it's space-age technology doesn't mean it's sophisticated. He was strapped to the outside like a Christmas tree to the family sedan. Maybe, I wondered, one of the straps had broken and now he was just thumping against the side every now and then. Never mind that there wasn't anything out there to prompt that kind of buffeting. No air, no wind, nothing. If he'd come loose, he'd just float a little farther away. But something was making that noise, and I worried almost constantly that it was him. The only problem was I had cameras. Lots and lots of them. And all of them, every single time, showed the same thing. The bag, barely changed from when I last saw it in person, strapped firmly and securely to the station's hull. This should have reassured me. It should have, but it didn't. Something was out there, tapping at the hull, on and off. No pattern, no reason, no correlation. It came and it went, seemingly choosing its moments to bother me the most. Sleep was difficult for multiple reasons. Tapping was bad enough, but lately my nightmares had taken a strange turn. Black. Cold. God, so cold. In them, I was trapped in a suffocating film. Freezing cold. Non-stop agony, fighting furiously to free myself. It's this black void of a nightmare. Like all deeply terrible dreams, it colored my thoughts for the rest of the day, and each time I had it, it got harder and harder to shake. I tried to endure, compartmentalize, take my mental turmoil and put it in a box right unhinged across the lid and sit rocking back and forth, waiting for my rescue. And that was an option. A very good one at that. But there was one little word that stopped me from going the route of hunkering down and ignoring my own madness. Immolation. When HQ told me the date of the shuttle would reach me, I spent quite a bit of time wondering if this wasn't just some big experiment. The sheer coincidence of it all, the magnitude of it. They'd sent me the message and the subject line had 3 exclamation points. Like the communications officer on the other side couldn't wait to deliver good news for once. The professionalism slip. What a joke. They'd arranged, finally, a shuttle to retrieve me after it was done dropping off guys at the ISS. It was lucky it had come so soon. A stroke of logistical genius allowed them to sneak Ben and me back without it being too conspicuous. I should be very thankful, they told me. But I was just stunned. The date matched the one Ben had written out. Factoring travel time, I'd be entering Earth's atmosphere at the exact time the prophesized moment would come and go. Ripe for an error, a miscalculated keypad, a mistimed thruster, something, anything to go wrong, leave me plunging to my death in a burning metal tube. Ripe for immolation. It wasn't as if Ben was out there tapping away. I wanted to know. I needed to know. I was a rational man, a skeptic. I did not believe the natural world would produce a man that could predict his death down to the very minute, the second even. Nor did I believe he could predict mine. But despite all my training, despite all I've put myself through to be here, floating millions of miles above the earth, I am but only an animal. I'm made of meat. Vulnerable. A raw nerve in a world of jagged rocks. And I am risk-averse. That word, that damn word, immolation. Not random, not chance. Up in the void, surrounded by pure oxygen, fire. It's a constant risk. Ben's little numbers loomed large in my mind, towering over me, casting a shadow over every thought I had. I had to make sure everything was in place, had to make sure there was no errors.
Yes, I have
If
opened.
it was a prediction, which I refused to accept at face value, then maybe I could take heart from it. What could Ben do in the face of an aneurysm? Nothing. But immolation? Fire? An accident? That sort of thing could be avoided. Just so long as everything was in working order. Just so long as everything was where it was meant to be. Did HQ know? Cameras and remote operators? No. Not really. They didn't know enough. No one else was in that tin can except me. I even have humans in space if you wouldn't trust their instincts and judgments. I needed to know what was making that noise. I needed to get out there. HQ caught on too late. I was inside the suit, the airlock cycling by the time they realized. I chose my timing well. Halfway through my maintenance shift, I told them I was taking a look at the suit, making sure everything was in the right order. Meant they were slow to catch on to what I was doing. Technically, they could stop the process at any stage. They could do anything from their side, realistically. But I threatened to force the manual override that would shut them out from that part of the system. They told me they'd court-martial me on return. But that was a piss-weak threat. For me, the stakes were higher than just some court-martial. In the end, they backed down. Know how hard it is to build a space station in secret? It came first. If the spacewalk went wrong and I died, the space station would still be there. $1 billion asset waiting the next top secret mission. It was my neck on the line, not theirs, and I accepted it. Under time pressure, HQ accepted it too. By the time the door finally opened and I was able to gently guide myself out and around the rim so I could see what was clinging to the station's exterior, I had already tapped into the cameras and they were guiding me along to my destination. But it was background noise to me at that point, their voices and little pings. Constant readouts of suit temperatures in the distance to the station hull. Fucking meaningless. All of it. All that mattered was the sound. Tap, tap, tap. I was anxious by this point, or perhaps, if I'm honest, scared. Downright terrified, I'll even say. Space is all extremes, not just heat, but light too. The shadows cast were vast and strange. You move in and out of Earth's shadow like it's a hand in front of a projector. The ones cast by yourself and your surroundings were a special kind of black. The station, with its myriad of pipes and cables, was covered in abyssal shadows, long, warped things with ambiguous origins. Sometimes I looked at the darkness and wondered if there was anything there at all, or if the station was simply bisected by some kind of strange cosmic force. Like I might fall into it somehow, forever lost, like a ship at sea. Normally, I'd think it was beautiful, oddly haunting in a way. Spacewalks had for me, in the past, been an almost religious experience. This carried the same sense of weight, but for very different reasons. I felt watched. Something I tried to ignore, but it got harder and harder the further I went. I kept looking over my shoulder, kept overthinking every little bump and vibration I felt on the station's hull. By the time I reached the place where I had strapped Ben's body, I was very close to a panic attack. That whole part of the station was covered in darkness, the kind where I just couldn't see a damn thing. Thick, inky black darkness, like I had my eyes closed in a room without the lights on. It was only HQ's voice telling me I'd reached my destination that let me know Ben was lying just a few feet from me. Under their direction, I found him, and when my light fell upon the bag itself, I saw the metallic fabric glitter with ice. Touching it, I felt Ben's frozen body inside, hard as rock. I gave him a nudge, and he didn't move an inch. The straps holding him in place were still there, firm as ever. What else could be causing that sound? I asked.
There is one option.
The nameless voice on the other end sounded persistent. But that had been a default since Ben died. HQ always sounded like that when they were holding back. And what is that?
We are not 100% certain on how corpses would respond to the changing temperatures and vacuum. Obviously, parts of the body will freeze and expand. Fluids, in particular. Right now, the bag has a lot of surface contact with the metallic hull. One theory is that the blood may be freezing and sublimating as the surface beneath changes temperature.
I looked at the bag and grimaced. How much blood, exactly?
We cannot possibly say for certain how much would have left the body. Only that the bag's job is to contain it until return. We are able to confirm using instruments in the station that the panel you are standing on is well below freezing. Everything should be in a manageable state, so to speak.
Solid. Likely one large clump, they replied. And then, after a moment, they added,
You wanted this. It would be a waste of resources now that you're out here to investigate further. To look inside the bag.
Of course, I'd wanted this, hadn't I? To satisfy my morbid curiosity, to address the rabid thoughts in my mind that had kept me awake, filling what little sleep I had with nightmares. Now that I was at the threshold, I found myself so afraid that even moving my hand took a kind of effort. And yet I had no choice. I had to see this through. The bag opened with a specially designed zipper. No sound, but I could feel the click, click, click of the specialized teeth opening up. It's stupid, but as I unfurled the flap, I could have sworn the terrible, fetid stench passed over me. It lasted no more than just a few seconds, but it was so vivid I turned and snapped my eyes shut as they watered. Power suggestion, I told myself as I reopened them. That was all. Nothing more. No air, no sound, no smell. Nothing. I took a few deep breaths, trying not to let the incident unsettle me further, and I looked inside the bag. Multiple people watching my video feed gasped audibly while I made a fairly unflattering noise somewhere between a moan and a cry. Something. I expected something. God, at worst, I expected something ghoulish. Blue skin, icicles collecting around the eyelashes, like a body found in the Arctic, but Ben had transformed. Great, jagged shards of frozen blood had erupted from the eyes and ears and mouth. His jaw dislocated to an unnatural angle as an icicle the size of my forearm forced its way out. His neck was broken, his torso shredded with strips of flesh hanging off into ribbons, and his hands were clawing at his face with bizarre, yellow stained nails. They'd even left grooves in his skin. God, what the fuck is this? I asked to no one in particular, only to realize that HQ hadn't been talking amongst themselves in the whole time.
Malfunction in the bag.
Unexpected pressure. Temperature changes. No, this isn't normal. Let's not pretend this is normal. Guys! I shouted, splitting the chatter and leaving silence. What? Why are his arms like that? Muscle spasms, possibly caused by, well, whatever caused the unusual reaction in his circulatory system. Maybe that caused his arms to curl up towards his face? There are scratch marks on his cheeks, I replied. Skin under his nails. Are we sure he was dead when I brought him out here? A dozen urgent, alarmed voices, all desperate to avoid even the slightest hint of responsibility, told me no, that was not possible. But looking down at Ben's tortured face, I couldn't help but feel a bit of doubt. I was about to ask what I ought to do next when the sun rose across the station. Unlike Earth, this wasn't a gentle morning filled with bird song and slowly waking from your sleep. Flipped like a light switch, blinding and bright. Thankfully, the suit reacted before it had a chance to blind me, but the temperature began to rapidly climb. I watched as something beneath Ben's skin began to writhe in the new warmth. That is definitely not normal. We can offer no further insight into the situation at this moment. The footage you're sending us is under review by a panel of experts, HQ told me, somewhat urgently and robotically, like the person on the other end was stifling panic.
Other current orders are to take samples, reseal the bag, and return to the station.
You sure I should be taking the stuff inside? There was some mumbling before the same operator replied.
Forget the samples, seal the bag, return to the station.
Gladly, I replied, before pulling the zipper shut. I was keen to leave and make the journey back faster than I should have. The crawling sensation you feel when being watched was all over me. Made me clumsy, and I knocked myself more than once on the way back, like I was unused to the suit's controls. I just couldn't escape the notion that everywhere I looked, someone or something had just darted back out of view, hiding just in my peripherals. Of course, that was absolutely impossible, so I told myself. What could survive out in this vacuum of space? But it only made that much worse to imagine something slinking back into the shadows, just out of my field of view. Tapping on the hull, driving me insane, stalking me every step of the way back. When I finally reached the door, the tension inside me rose. If something was going to happen, it would happen now with my back turned on Infinity. I had never felt so vulnerable. Reynolds? The sound made me jump. I'd been so focused on my surroundings, I'd forgotten I'd was being supervised by a room full of people 1,000 miles away. What is it?
Reynolds, we're seeing something here we're not sure of. Being told you should hold off on returning.
Something about that voice on the other end made my stomach sink. They didn't just sound confused, and make no mistake, when you're clinging to the side of a station all on your own, confused would have been bad enough. But no, there was something else. Fear.
There's an anomaly, they added. No one down here knows how to proceed. We're currently seeking input from higher-ups. This is unprecedented.
What's going on?
It began with, well, signals from in some of the biomonitors. Specifically, Ben's.
That last word hit like a truck. What?
Yes, and the cameras are... At first, we thought they were malfunctioning. It appears as if Ben's bag was empty. And then, Reynolds, we noticed something else.
Guys, what is going on here?
I'm being told I can't say more. Just wait. Wait for a moment. I tighten my grip on the railing, my heart pounding, hands feeling clammy inside of my suit. Finally, the door cycled open, and I was ready to disregard all orders when the man speaking to me from HQ practically screamed in my ear, "Do not enter. Reynolds, do not enter the station. What we were seeing on the cameras, you can't let that thing in. If something's out here, I'm getting to safety before it reaches me."
I stopped. My brain processed. I knew. I heard that. I'd heard something in the vacuum of space. I looked around at my hands, my feet. It couldn't be possible unless... Tap. 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 Without moving my head, I turned my eyes to the very edge of my helmet's vision, and I watched as a single yellow fingernail tapped gently on the glass. The man in HQ spoke in a terrifying whisper. "He's on your suit." The terror that shot through me was electric, like I'd just grasped a live wire. White fire coursing through my veins, singeing my every nerve. Without even thinking, I reacted like I just found out there was a grenade strapped to my back. All instinct, no rationality. I cried and swung around, trying to knock Ben off of my back, but all I accomplished was setting off some alarms as I damaged my suit. Get it off! Get it off of me! I thrashed desperately and felt something shuffling around the exterior of the bulky suit. Finally, my eyes fell on something useful. The jet controls. I fumbled my hands into place and immediately blasted myself into the open pressure chamber, turning at the last minute so that the back of the suit smashed into the thick secondary door. I only hoped that whatever was clinging to my back was destroyed by the impact, but when I looked up, Ben was still there, gawping at me with a mouthful of frozen blood. Slowly, his movement packed with the eerie confidence of a predator. He prepared to enter the station. "Reynolds, get away from the door! We're initiating emergency shutdown right now!" Ben had one hand inside the door when it slammed shut, and it cut off, even in space with the bulkhead between us. I could have sworn I heard him scream. There was no ignoring Ben or the sounds he made, not anymore. The terrible thumps that battered the station, their location changing seemingly at random. This drove the people on the ground insane. Oh, I'd heard my fair share of rationalization over the few hours. Been sent
books upon books worth of written material from every type of expert you could imagine. Ever since my colleague's death, I'd been wrestling with all sorts of bizarre thoughts, but after the spacewalk, it was like they'd all spilled out of my head and are now terrorizing other like-minded skeptics. Try as they might, no one in HQ can make sense of it. But they didn't have the journal. After what happened during my spacewalk, it became priority for me to figure out what the fuck was going on with those numbers Ben had recorded. They weren't just some kind of gibberish. I'd sort of known that from the start. To read them was to feel like you were reading another language. Something ancient and archaic. Something secret. Hidden. And while I never cracked the code, none even now, after all this time, I did figure out where Ben had found it. Light. The trick was to dig deeper into Ben's research, specifically a pet project of his he'd spent nearly his entire life chasing. Little comet, a ball of ice way out in the Kepler belt, close to where the solar system abates and the great cosmic void begins. Something small and insignificant that rotated and shifted and occasionally caught the sun, bouncing photons right back at us. Glittering snowball so faint as to be invisible unless you happen to look at the right place at the right time. Just like Ben did when he was barely even 10, playing with a hobbyist's dad's backyard telescope. A light in the darkness, a light that spoke to few instruments. Ben had adjusted just to record each little emission. Flash on, flash off. On, off, on. Tap, tap, tap. Binary to hexadecimal, and from there... God, something else. Something that spoke to him. Something out there had spoken to him. I don't know what scared me more, the sound of a reanimated Ben pounding away at the station, an imminent, all too near threat, or the thought of something in the void whispering unknown secrets to a man for the last 2 decades. An idea that occasionally rose over me like the tide, swallowing me whole, as if I dwelt on it for more than just a few moments. I never did figure out what the transmission was saying, but I was transfixed nonetheless. Not just by Ben's little journal that contained hundreds, thousands, millions even, handwritten records, but the live transmission he had set up on his computer, the one he'd converted into a sound. It was like an earworm on steroids, like white noise made of acid. A flood of alien ideas that left me confused and drooling if I listened to it for too long, my brain going numb and my eyes dulling over. All told, I spent no more than a few days with access to that transmission, and by the end, I felt like I was on the verge of just melting into nothing. Ben had been exposed to that thing since childhood, spent years and years listening and recording and just waiting, working towards something none of us could really hope to understand. I had to just assume that that transmission was responsible for his death, and even worse, what had happened to him afterwards. Had it always been the reason for his coming to space? Had the Ben I'd known just been a sham? Carefully fabricated lie just to get closer to what he was looking for? The sound, the light coming from out there, it felt wrong. It wasn't a gentle lull or a siren's pull. It was dark and overpowering. Why had he given into it? Why had he done everything it wanted? How much of his life was lived because of its needs and wants? One thing I could be sure of, as I spent days listening to Ben's furious rampage on the exterior of the station, whatever had spoken to him, it was hostile. and I couldn't be allowed to come back with me. Reynolds, I'm being told this is going to be a bit of an unconventional pickup. I scoffed as I finished suiting up. That was an understatement. What did they tell you? I asked as I pulled the helmet down and initiated the door's opening sequence. There are concerns about contamination, the pilot told me. Not sure what that means. Didn't say if it was biological or chemical. All sounds a little weird if you ask me. But we're meant to pick you up mid-spacewalk. Is that right? Yup, I replied. Huh. Are you going to be up for that? We're told we can come about 200 meters, but you'll have to come close to the rest with the suit's thrusters. Going to be something else for you. Untethered journey from one vehicle to the next. It's never been done before. I'm well aware of the risks, I said. Just keep your eyes peeled. For this time, it was his turn to scoff. For what? He cried. You'll know when you see it. I made the journey with my back to the shuttle, floating in the wrong direction with a slow but consistent speed. My eyes glued to the station, looking for some signs of Ben. There was the occasional flash of something red, a slight shimmer of movement, often obscured by some of the station's panels and antennae, but that let me know he was still on the exterior, skulking around somewhere. So long as he just stayed there, I knew I'd be okay. But the entire time I kept waiting for the other foot to drop, the tension to finally explode into that life-threatening danger I knew I was waiting for me. It came to a surprise when I finally approached the shuttle without incident. The pilot told me I was a few meters away and it was time to turn around, so I did, drifting around as gently as a diver returning to the surface. I had my back to the station no more than a few seconds when the pilot grunted. Huh, that's odd. He sounded nonchalant, but the object that hit me was anything but minor. Ben, and uninterested in making the journey safely, had launched himself off the station as fast as he could. And with no way of slowing down, he hit me at full speed, slamming me up against the part of the door frame and sending us both tumbling out into the void before anyone had even had the time to register his attack. This time, he was not letting me get a door between us. He scrambled over my suit like a deranged insect, one that I desperately tried to swat away with as a great void spun around us both. Stars turned into lines, the shuttle was swooping past us. My helmet's field of view was almost in random directions. It was sickening and terrifying, and I hoped to God I'd be able to correct the spin before it got out of control. All that came second to the monster was clinging to the outside of my suit. At some point he'd have crawled around in such a way that I got a good look at him. The first in a few days. It was up close, personal. Even with the helmet's glass between us, I could make out such stark and startling detail that I momentarily froze in terror, aware only vaguely of the pilot's panicked transmissions. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is that thing? Reynolds, you need to get yourself stabilized now. Much further and we won't be able to help. Whatever you do, you need to know the fucking thing isn't coming aboard the shuttle. I wanted to reply, but I was busy getting an arm between me and Ben, who was now a profusion of jagged red crystals in varying sizes. Some as big as kitchen knives, others like sewing needles. Thin and delicate and breaking off against the outside of my suit. A spacesuit's worst nightmare. A puncture wouldn't lead to the immediate decompression of you're thinking of. Instead, I'd have a few moments almost before the air enveloping the suit dissipated, and after that my lungs would collapse. My blood would start to boil, and the water inside my eyes, nose, and ears and other soft tissues would vaporize and try to escape me, like frostbite on fast forward. The punctures weren't my sole concern. I knew I had to stop Ben's hands from getting a grip on the helmet. I didn't know if whatever had animated him had access to all his memories, but Ben sure as shit knew how to remove a helmet from the exterior, so all my focus went to keeping his nasty little fingers away from my neck. A puncture would still leave me with enough time to return to the shuttle, but with no helmet, I'd be doomed to a very painful death. So I fought the best I could, knowing everything hinged on me pushing him away. But Ben was lithe and insectile, constantly slipping out of reach whenever I got too close to give him a good shove. His fingers could easily find purchase on the suit and in its many little greebles, while I basically was wielding oven gloves that offered little to no dexterity. I had no hope of shaking him off the usual way, but I did have something on my side. Inertia. The whole time we'd been spinning furiously, and that rotational force was just about the only thing trying to peel the two of us apart. So far, I'd been fighting it, but why? I realized at the last moment, I had only one option left. So I jammed half thrusters on and decided to make the nearly out-of-control spin much, much worse. Normally, an uncontrolled spin is one of the worst nightmare scenarios any astronaut dreads. Humans are irregularly shaped, and once you start rotating along more than one axis, applying more force is likely just going to make it worse. Correcting takes a huge amount of experience and insight, and even then, there's no guarantee that you can fully stop it. More than likely, it is that by the time you figure out just what you need to do, rotational forces will have you on the brink of unconsciousness. And from there, death was just a stone's throw away. For me, it was the only chance I had. So I accelerated the spin and kept accelerating, holding the button down until forces at play pulled Ben further and further towards the front of the suit. That's where inertia wanted us. Two objects in near symmetry, ready to break off in opposite directions at any moment. Ben held on for longer than I did. At some point my limbs went weak, my vision went dark and my arms fell to my side. No longer able to fight the monster off. But by then, it took everything Ben had just to cling onto me, and he could no longer attack or fumble at my helmet. Eventually, he had to give in as the spin grew faster and faster, and the forces trying to separate us grew too strong. It was like every roller coaster I had been on merged into one and ramped up to 12. The last thing I remembered before I lost consciousness was the sight of Ben's monstrous face being flung off into the vast void of nothingness. I came aboard the shuttle and several men and women crowded around me. Jesus Christ, you're a lucky son of a bitch. I groaned and made my eyes toward the person who had spoken. It sounded like the pilot. Nice to put a face to the voice. I don't feel lucky, I gasped. You spun right towards us. We were already suited up and on our way. Lined up well. That suit was riddled with holes. Any later and we wouldn't have been around to catch you and to get you into safety. As it is, pal, you're going home. Medical check shows no real issues. I think you're gonna be okay. Where's Ben? The people around me shared a funny look before one of them realized. Benjamin Wheatley? The other astronaut on board? Who was attacking you? I nodded. Well, he's gone, they replied. If that really was your colleague, we're sorry. I feel like there's a story we're missing. I'll catch you up when I'm feeling better. Well, whatever happened to him, he'll be re-entering Earth's atmosphere in the next hour, the pilot replied. What then? I asked. The pilot thought for a second. Body? Human body on the re-entry? It'll go up in flames. immolation. And that was the only other astronaut on this station is dead.
That was actually fucking cool. They
It's
should
a
turn that
very-
into a movie.
It's a very special thing to have horror based in space because it's so vast, so unending, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite nice. It's like the antithesis to all the deep sea horror we have.
Yeah, and that was
No.
one of the more unique ones as well.
Exactly. Now, we do appear to have just enough time for this last story, so I will say with a prerequisite, sleep, keep an eye on your DMs. You'll see something very special there in a minute.
Cool.
I'm going to be reading Smile Dog. I first met in person with Mary E. in the summer of 2007. I had arranged with her husband of 15 years, Terrence, to see her for an interview. Mary had initially agreed, since I was not a newsman, but rather an amateur writer gathering information for a few early college assignments, and, if all went according to plan, some pieces of fiction. We scheduled the interview for a particular weekend, when I was in Chicago on unrelated business. But at the last moment, Mary changed her mind and locked herself in the couple's bedroom, refusing to meet with me. For half an hour, I sat with Terrence as we camped outside the bedroom door. I listening and taking notes while he attempted fruitlessly to calm his wife. The things Mary said made little sense, but fit with the pattern I was expecting. Though I could not see her, I could tell from her voice she was crying. And more often than not, her objections to speaking with me centered around an incoherent diatribe on her dreams, her nightmares. Terrence apologized profusely when we ceased the exercise, and I did my best to take it in stride. Recall that I wasn't a reporter in search of a story, but merely a curious young man in search of information. Besides, I thought at the time I could perhaps find another similar case if I put my mind and resources to it. Mary E. was the sysop for a small Chicago-based bulletin board system in 1992, and when she first encountered Smile.jpg and her life changed forever. She and Terrence had been married for only 5 months. Mary was one of the estimated 400 people who saw the image when it was posted as a hyperlink on the BBS, though she was the only one who had spoken openly about the experience. The rest have remained anonymous or are perhaps dead. In 2005, when I was only in 10th grade, Smile.jpg was first brought to my attention by my burgeoning interest in web-based phenomena. Mary was the most often cited victim of what was sometimes referred to as, quote, smile.dog. The being Smile.jpg is reputed to display. What caught my interest, other than the obvious macabre elements of the cyber legend and my proclivity towards such things, was the sheer lack of information, usually to the point that people don't believe it even exists other than a rumor or a hoax. It is unique because through the entire phenomenon centers a picture file. That file is nowhere to be found on the internet. Certainly, many photo-manipulated simulacra litter the web, showing up with the most frequency on sites such as Imageboard 4chan, particularly the X-Focus Paranormal subboard. It is suspected these are fakes because they do not have the same effect the true Smile.jpg is believed to have, namely the sudden onset temporal lobe epilepsy and acute anxiety. The purported reaction in the interviewer is one of the reasons why the phantom-like Smile.jpg is regarded with such disdain, since it is patently absurd, though, depending on whom you ask, the reluctance to acknowledge Smile.jpg's existence might just be just as out of fear as it is out of disbelief. Neither smile.jpg nor smile.dog is mentioned anywhere on Wikipedia, though the website features articles on such other, perhaps more scandalous shock sites, such as hello.jpg or other things of that ilk. Any attempt to create a page pertaining to smile.jpg is summarily deleted by any of the encyclopedia's many admins. Encounters with smile.jpg are the stuff of internet legend. Mary E's story is not unique. There are unverified rumors of smile.jpg showing up in the early days of Usenet, and even one persistent tale of that in 2002. A hacker flooded the forums of humor and satire website Something Awful with a deluge of smile.dog pictures, rendering almost half of the forum's users at the time epileptic. It is also said that in the mid to late 90s, that smile.jpg circulated on Usenet and as an attachment of the chain email with the subject line, "Smile, God loves you." Yet, despite the huge exposure these stunts would generate, there were few people who admit to having experienced any of them, and no trace of the file or any link has ever been discovered. Those who claim to have seen smile.jpg often weakly joke that they're far too busy to save a copy of the picture to their hard drive. However, all alleged victims offer the same description of a photo. A dog-like creature, usually described as appearing similar to something like a Siberian husky, illuminated by the flash of a camera, sits in a dim room. The only background detail that is visible being a human hand extending from the darkness near the left side of the frame. The hand is empty, but is usually described as, quote, beckoning. Of course, most attention is given to the dog, or dog creature, as some victims are more certain than others about what they claim to have seen. The muzzle of the beast is reputedly split into a wide grin, revealing 2 rows of very white, very straight, very sharp, very human-looking teeth. This is, of course, not a description given immediately after viewing the picture, but rather a recollection of the victims, who claim they have seen the picture endlessly repeated in their mind's eye during the time they are, in reality, having epileptic fits. These fits are reported to continue indeterminably, often while the victims sleep, resulting in very vivid and disturbing nightmares. These may be treated with medication, though in some instances it is more effective than others. Mary E., I assumed, was not on an effective medication. That was why, after my visit to her apartment in 2007, I sent out feelers to several folklore and urban legend-oriented news groups, websites, and mailing lists, hoping to find the name of a supposed victim of smile.jpg who felt more interested in talking about their experiences. For a time, nothing happened, and at length I forgot completely about my pursuits, since I had begun my freshman year of college and was quite busy. Mary contacted me via email, however, near the beginning of March 2008. Subject line, last summer's interview. Dear Mr. L, I am incredibly sorry about my behavior last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that it was no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to act out as I did. I realized that I could have handled the situation more decorously. However, I hope you will forgive me. At the time, I was afraid. You see, for 15 years, I have been haunted by smile.jpg. Smile.dog comes to me in my sleep every night. I know that sounds silly, but it is true. There is an ineffable quality about my dreams, my nightmares, that makes them completely unlike any real dreams I've ever had. I do not move and do not speak. I simply look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene from that horrible picture. I see the beckoning hand, and I see smile.dog. It talks to me. It is not a dog, of course, though I am not quite sure what it really is. It tells me it will leave me alone if I do as it asks. All I must do, it says, is
Spread the word.
that is how it phrases its demands, and I know exactly what it means. It wants me to show it to someone else. And I could, the week after my incident, I received in the mail a manila envelope with no return address. Inside was only a 3 by 1.5 inch floppy diskette. Without having to check, I knew precisely what was on it. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to a stranger, a coworker. I could even show it to Terrence. As much as the idea disgusted me. And what would happen then? Well, if Smile.dog kept its word, I could finally sleep again. Yet if it lied, what would I do? And who would say something? And who was to say something worse would not come for me if I did not do as the creature asked? So I did nothing for 15 years, though I kept the diskette hidden amongst my things. Every night, for 15 years, Smile.dog has come to me in my sleep, and demanded that I spread the word. For 15 years, I have stood strong, though there have been hard times. Many of my fellow victims on the BBS board where I first encountered Smile.jpg stopped posting. I heard some of them had ended their lives. Others remained completely silent, simply disappearing off the face of the web or even the planet. They are the ones I worry about the most. I sincerely hope that you will forgive me, Mr. L. But last summer, when you contacted me and my husband about an interview, I was near the breaking point. I decided I was going to give you the floppy diskette. I did not care if Smile.dog was lying or not. I just wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone I had no connection with, and I thought I would not feel sorrow when you took the diskette as part of your research and sealed your fate. Before you arrived, I realized what I was doing. I was plotting to ruin your life. I could not stand the thought, and in fact, I still cannot. I am ashamed, Mr. L. And I hope that this warning will dissuade you from looking further, investigating further into Smile.jpg. You may, in time, encounter someone who is, if not weaker than I, then wholly more depraved. Someone who will not hesitate to follow Smile.dog's orders. Stop while you're still whole. Sincerely, Mary E. Terrence contacted me later that month with the news that his wife had ended her own life. While cleaning up the various things that she'd left behind, closing the email accounts and the like, he happened upon the above message. He was a man in shambles. He wept as he told me to listen to his wife's advice. He'd found the diskette. He revealed and burned it until it was nothing but a stinking pile of blackened plastic. The part that had disturbed him, however, was how the diskette had hissed as it melted. Some sort of animal, he said. I will admit that I was a little unconcerned about how to respond to this. At first, I thought perhaps it was just a joke, with the couple belatedly playing with the situation in order to get a rise out of me. A quick check of Chicago's newspapers' online obituaries, however, proved that Mary E. was indeed dead. There was, of course, no mention of suicide in the article. I decided that, for the time at least, I would not further pursue the subject of Smile.jpg, especially since I had finals coming up at the end of May. But the world has odd ways of testing us. Almost a full year after I'd returned from my disastrous interview with Mary E., I would receive another email. Subject line, Smile. Hello. I found your email through a mailing list. Your profile said you were interested in Smile Dog. Have saw it. It's not as bad as everyone says. I have sent it to you here. Just spreading the word. The final line chilled me to the bone. I felt paranoid and weak in the knees. According to my email client, there was one file attached called naturally smile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely a fake, I imagined, and even if it weren't, I was never wholly convinced of smile.jpg's peculiar powers. Mary E's account had shaken me, yes, but she was probably mentally unbalanced anyway. After all, how could a simple image do what smile.jpg was said to accomplish? What sort of creature was it that could break one's mind with only the power of the eye? And if such things were patently absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I downloaded the image and if I looked at it and if Mary turned out to be correct, if Smile Dog came to me in my dreams demanding I spread the word, what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary did? Fighting against the urge to give in until I died? Or would I simply spread the word, eager to be put to rest? And if I choose the latter, how could I do it? Whomst would I burden in turn? If I went through with my earlier intention to write a short article about smile.jpg, I decided I could attach it as evidence. And anyone who read the article, anyone who took interest, anyone who even looked at it at a passing glance would be affected. And even assuming the smile.jpg attached to the email was genuine, would I be capricious enough to save myself in that matter? Could I spread the word? Yes. Yes, I could. And that was Smile Dog. Very old, very classic story.
Old and gold. Yup, there it is.
Now,
Hold up.
this has been The Midnight Zone. Thank you again, everyone, for joining with me, even on one of my not so good days. I cannot thank you guys enough for sticking around and watching these silly little streams of me sharing my passion for horror with you guys. It means the world to me. Next week, I'll be reading some more stories and maybe a couple of short ones, but until then, spread the word and keep your doors locked. Good night, everyone.
Good night.